Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Fiona Plessman, and I'm the MC for tonight's virtual meeting. I'd like everyone to note that this meeting is being recorded, as it will be made available online as a resource for those who missed the meeting or want to refresh themselves with any of the information provided. We've only got a few attendees at this stage. Thank you very much for joining the meeting. The cameras and microphones are disabled for attendees. Please use the chat feature, which is at the top of your screen, to make a comment or ask a question. So the meeting will start in a moment with a message from the Mayor Davis, and then we'll be going through a slide presentation which will be addressed by our panel members. So I'll introduce the panel to you. It's Mayor Davis. I'm just checking. Are you?
She may be a few minutes late, Fiona.
Okay, that's okay. Well, we can actually go to her message when she joins us. That was Bernard's voice you heard. Bit of a wave from Bernard, our General Manager, Bernard Smith. Lindsay Woodland, Director of Corporate and Community Services. Rihanna Sheridan, Director of Place and Growth. The Acting Director of Infrastructure Services, Anthony Camphurst, and the Chief Financial Officer, Shagir Mohammed. So thank you to the panel members for being available and joining the meeting. I'll just check who else is here. No, not yet. I'll just move to our agenda for this evening. We've just had a look at our panel member. We will go to a message from the Mayor when she joins us. And the slide presentation is intended to provide some detailed information from which you can make a comment or ask questions as we move through the presentation. We'll be overviewing Council's role in the community, having a look at the strategic planning documents which are now out on public exhibition and available for community engagement up until the 6th of June. That's Council's draft community strategic plan, revised long-term financial plan that has a proposed special rate variation and associated scenarios included in it, which we will go through in our slide presentation, the draft delivery program and draft operational plan. We'll be providing information on Council's financial sustainability and overview the 4 special rate variation scenarios, and importantly, seek your feedback and answer questions. We have had an extremely good level of engagement for all 3 face-to-face town hall meetings. We've received so far hundreds of submissions and strong responses through the phone survey. And all of that information will be made available at Council's meeting in June. I would ask that during our virtual meeting tonight that we use respectful language and understand that panel members are doing the best they can to address all the questions that are posed and are genuinely seeking comments from the community. I'll just see if Mayor Davis has joined us yet. Yes, it looks like Mayor Davis has joined the meeting. Madam Mayor, are you ready to give your message? You're on mute. Councillor Davis, you're on mute.
Hi, sorry, I'm just having trouble hearing you.
I'll just double check. I'll use Greg. Greg, am I coming through clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, are you fine to deliver your message now? I can't hear you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear the Mayor? Bernard, can you hear the Mayor?
No.
I've got a message from Peter Brown. He can hear us all very well. Thank you very much for that, Peter. We might move on and go to the slides on Council's role in the community until we can hear you, Madam Mayor. So I might ask you to speak to Council's role in the community. Now, Bernard, are you happy to get started?
Thanks, Fiona, and I'm sure we can sort out the sound issues. I suppose it's important to provide a bit of background, a bit of a backdrop to this discussion in terms of the role of local government. As the saying goes, you know, we're the closest level of government to the community. And I suppose to break it down, we operate on a couple of levels. One is firstly advocating on behalf of the community, facilitating things, working with key stakeholders to achieve outcomes for the community. Now, more often than not, that's with the state government, the federal government, other agencies. You know, as the council, as your local elected representatives, are there to campaign, to lobby for the things which the community believes are important. And this council, previous councils, that's been a key focus of them. The Mayor was in Sydney 2 or 3 weeks ago speaking with ministers about issues. And if we want to achieve things here which are the responsibility or sort of make an improvement to our way of life, then it's important that we advocate very hard to those other agencies, those other levels of government. And then moving on, Fiona, on a more day-to-day level, you know, we do touch the lives of residents on a daily basis. And there's a list of an enormous range of services there. But I think one thing to point out too is the diversity of those services. Yes, it's those traditional ones around roads and footpaths and collecting the rubbish, libraries. But then we also have arts and culture. We have our aged care services, which are so critically important, whether it's NDIS, whether that's the delivery of home care packages. And that's so, what I often talk about, that's so important to the lives of our elderly residents, ensuring they can keep living in Glen Innes, keep living in their homes, be close to their families. And I think it's very easy to underestimate the importance of those services. And then, of course, we've got things like health inspections and again, in the background, very simple, but if you look across that whole suite of infrastructure, of community services, of the provision of facilities, we play a very fundamental role in the community. People want to feel good about where they live, and the council needs to create an operating environment where people can go about their lives, they can feel good about where they live. And for us to continue to do that, it really goes to the heart of this discussion around sustainability.
Thank you very much, Bernard.
Sorry.
I'm just checking. I can't see Mayor Davis in the group right now, so I think we'll move on until she can...
I think we'll just keep rolling on. So in terms of, we're at the start of a council term, and a very important activity for council at the start of a term is thinking about the future, thinking about strategic planning. It's about thinking what it wants to achieve over the next 4 years, but also taking a longer term look and determining what is important for the community. Thanks, Fiona. So we started, or the council rather, started that process last year when it went out to the community and asked it about what is important to it, what is important over the next 10 years, what are the gaps we have, what are the areas we need to improve on. Now, look, you would probably get a similar response from most localities around Australia, but it's still really important to confirm and engage with the community. And as you see there, it's healthcare, it's infrastructure, community facilities, medical facilities, health is critically important, employment and economic growth. So yes, no real surprises there, but it is important to check in with the community and confirm that they are the things which this community wants work done on over the next 10 years. And that may not be just the responsibility of council either, that may be the responsibility of other agencies, other levels of government. So probably this process started way back early last year when council undertook a sustainability review. That was commenced back in February. The council then considered a report on that middle of the year. We had a look at our service review framework, what we need to do to improve the way we go about our services. We've undertaken some waste and water pricing reviews and looked at our depreciation. So really there, the building blocks there, that's some of the operational work which we needed to undertake in order to then look at our long-term, what needs to be done from a long-term perspective. That then leads to 3 or 4 really important documents. The first one is a community strategic plan, and they're the strategic objectives and goals that in turn guide what we call the delivery program, which has a 4-year horizon, and the operational plan, which has a 1-year horizon. So we have a 10-year plan, very big picture, lots of general principles, but it's still guiding us into the areas we need to work on. We then have a delivery program, which is the council's 4-year and the operational plan. So within that community strategic plan, we divide it up into 5 strategic objectives. That gives us something to focus on. It gives us something to work towards in terms of achieving the vision. And again, obvious, but in terms of having a structured approach, it gives us that structure. A thriving and connected community, about our social cohesion, about our well-being. A diverse and prosperous economy speaks for itself. Protecting the environment, infrastructure, and of course, effectively governance, open and collaborative leadership. How do we engage with the community? How does any level of government engage with the community? And then within that community strategic plan, we break it down into a few more specific goals. So supporting industry diversity, just picking out a few, minimising environmental impacts, ensuring the protection of rural landscapes. So we start to break it down, those high order objectives, we start to break it down into goals. Okay, so that's the community strategic plan, the 10-year plan. We now go to the 4-year delivery plan, which outlines what council will do. It outlines our contribution to achieving those strategies and goals of the community strategic plan. So you can see, obviously, no one can read that, but it just gives an indication of the structure. You'll see those 4 key objectives, and then we're starting to break it down into more detail, into the aspects which council can influence, which council can roll out over the next 4 years. Access to healthcare and emergency services, through the retention of professionals, what council can do in that space. Community events, cultural activities. It's important on a number of fronts, not only in terms of attracting visitation, but in terms of those events that just aren't for the visitors, they're for the locals. Again, it goes back to feeling good about where they live. Diverse economy, advocating for better quality tertiary access, housing diversity. People won't come here to work if they can't get the sort of housing they want. So council's got some objectives in there around encouraging that housing diversity. The infrastructure, there are aspects in there around long-term strategic planning for stormwater, not terribly exciting, but very important. So it's breaking it down into those more tangible activities, activating precincts. What can we do about the character of our towns and villages? There is activities in there around certainly improving the livability of and the presentation, most importantly, of those towns and villages. Our environment, waste management is always a work in progress. It's a highly regulated space and we need to do a lot of work in terms of our waste management strategy. It's not just about the bin being picked up and going off to the landfill. It's about transfer stations. It's about resource recovery. It's about meeting environmental standards. And of course, the other one is around leveraging off our both heritage and our landscapes in the interests of attracting visitors. And in terms of the governance, how we can be open and collaborative in leading the council and the community, creating financial sustainability, recognising our responsibility as the local government authority to manage public resources as well as possible. And part of that is of course, around financial sustainability and the consideration of a special rate variation. And finally, that was the 4-year delivery plan. We then have our 12-month operational plan. So that includes our budget for the next 12 months. It includes all the activities for the next 12 months, and that does go into more detail. It's around constructing particular roads. It's around, for example, building a dog park. We want to review our youth strategy. So it's really our workbook, our work plan for the next 12 months. There are some important aspects in there, including replacement of a financial system, the office co-location, master planning for improved livability. We need to determine what we want to do in that space. So we need to plan before we deliver. And importantly, really looking hard at cost savings and service reviews. It does indicate or show an operating deficit of next year of $4.3 million. That does include non-cash items, but ultimately that still reflects a deterioration in our overall financial position, in our overall level of services and infrastructure maintenance. And that really goes to the heart of the discussion around the special rate variation. I think to put a bit of context in it as well, over the next 10 years, the time frame of the community strategic plan, we'll have operational expenditure of close to $450 million. So whilst we may think that we are a small council, it's one with significant community and financial responsibilities.
Well, thank you, Bernard. I think we now have Mayor Davis online. Are you there? I can see that you're on. Oh, great. Thanks very much.
Yes.
I'll just go back.
Sorry, everyone. I had to restart a couple of times, and
that's technology for you.
Yes. So, you want me to go do my bit now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, I would have said this right at the beginning, but thank you to everyone online and for being here tonight. I think, you know, one of the things that's really important to remember is that we're all doing our best in this really tough environment we find ourselves in. And certainly local government, I think, as Bernard has probably already said, is really complex. And like any organisation, council, is not perfect, but we're certainly doing our best and doing the work, taking feedback on board, fixing all of our issues, and also looking to improve things going forward. So what's really important for us right now is to understand how we got here and focusing on where we go next. So to move forward, to realise our potential, and it is no small task. We are heavily regulated and we have to do more with less. And this is, not just something that Glen Innes is facing. All New South Wales councils, except probably the ones with the largest rate bases in metro and city areas, are doing it tough. So this concept of establishing our financial sustainability has been around for over 12 months. I'm sure Bernard mentioned that earlier. But what we're really trying to do at the moment is shift from a short-term fixes to long-term solutions. And that's what all of these plans do that Bernard has just run you through. So it's really important that these plans reflect what you've asked for, and Bernard would have already talked to that, so I won't go through that. But from a councillor mayor perspective, these are the strategic plans that we lead as your council, and they are equally ambitious as well as being realistic. Lindsay will talk a little bit about grant-funded projects in a little while, so I won't go into that too much. But they are a great opportunity to deliver more for our community, but they do come with a warning signal and some challenges that puts forward in regard to our cash flow. But Lindsay will explain a bit more about that later. I also want to let you know that as your mayor, I'm very dedicated to working with the general manager and the executive to take our community forward and realise our potential. Unfortunately, there's never a good time for a number of things for council to do, and one of those especially is the special rate variation. Another is taking out a loan to co-locate staff. It's never going to be a good time. It's never going to be an easy conversation, but we're committed to moving things forward in the right way. I guess the other thing I wanted to let you know from my perspective is the advocacy work, which is part of my role, and really making sure that the state and federal government know what we need. Advocating to state and federal government leaders is part of my role, and I've been doing that. We may not have talked too much yet about the financial assistance grants, but these are the federal grants that councils receive every year. Unfortunately, they're not enough. At the moment, they're 0.54%, I believe. We need 1%. We used to get 1%. We don't anymore. We're advocating to do that. We're pitching that at the ALGA conference at the end of June as well. Country mayors are all over it. ALGA's all over it. Our state member is now on the case as well. This will really have a huge impact on how council is sustainable going forward. But the reality is it's not going to happen for many years yet. And that's been the guidance offered by the ministers to date, but we'll keep fighting the good fight. The other thing that I'm advocating for is a rethink around the competitive grants programs. So whilst it's great they announce these, millions or billions of dollars of grant-funded programs, we actually need to spend money to get shovel ready. We need to have pipeline of projects, which is where planning comes into it. But unfortunately, they disadvantage small rural councils. It's a top-down approach. It's not place-based, and it's competitive, as I say. So we miss out. So we have to keep applying until we get the money that we need. also advocating for, better funding around other streams. So whilst the federal assistance grant is one stream and roads is another stream, we need additional regular streams coming through around climate action, emergency preparedness and community infrastructure. I'm also advocating for fairer access to digital infrastructure. So that's really about the problem with the funding model as it is. Regional towns are being left behind because it's not commercially viable for the telcos to put in a tower, in a place that doesn't have the amount of customers to make it a good return on investment for them. But my belief is that no matter where you are in our LGA, you should be able to be connected and be able to feel safe, and that goes for our visitors too. So very simply, my message to government is give us the tools and resources that we need, and we'll do the job with our community to the best of our ability. We'll keep pushing for that. No one knows our community better than us collectively. So tonight, you will see from this presentation, and I see there's a few people that have been to a lot of sessions that are online tonight as well, that we're letting you under the hood. We're being upfront and transparent. We want your feedback. We're already listening. We've already resolved to look at the hardship policy, the pensioner rebate, and the debt recovery policies after the consultation to try and ease the burden for, vulnerable or low income and our pensioners in the community. We've heard that. We've already acted, and a report will come back with some updates on that at the right time in the next few months. But we're making progress and we're fixing what has been broken. And this is not to lay blame or fault or anything. We're identifying what needs to happen. We're getting on and doing it. It won't happen overnight. We can't fix everything straight away. But as your mayor, I'm committed to using everything I have in my toolbox to lead council in collaboration with the other councillors and the general manager and executive who are doing a great job. And I just wanted to say, again, the staff are doing a great job. They're part of our community. I really appreciate their work, their dedication and their professionalism. They work long hours. And that's all for the community and all to provide these services for you. So I really want our community to pull together at this time to be part of this conversation. Please read the documents, submit your feedback. We are listening. So that's all I have for now. I'll let the team continue on.
Thanks very much, Mayor Davis. I'll just move forward to our next set of part of the presentation, which takes a look at, sorry about that. We're looking at our proposed new waste pricing strategy. Mm-hmm. And I'll invite the Director of Place and Growth, Rihanna Sheridan, to speak to these two slides.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks to everyone for taking time out of your night to attend. So I'm going to be speaking about our council's proposed new waste pricing strategy, which involves an increase to the waste fees on the rates. So why are we proposing to raise the waste fees? Well, council is legally required to charge for domestic waste services in a way that covers the reasonable cost of providing them. So right now, our current fee model doesn't actually do that. It mostly just covers running our waste facilities and services at a bare minimum and our staffing costs. I'd like to highlight at this point that revenue from the domestic waste charges on your rates notice goes directly into a dedicated waste reserve. This reserve can only be used for waste operations, maintenance, compliance and future capital projects. It's separate from the general fund, which is where your regular rates go. And look, before I jump into the details of the proposed increases as they currently stand, I just wanted to quickly advise that in response to community feedback received to date, council officers will be reviewing the proposed waste charge increases at the conclusion of the exhibition period. But as things currently stand though, After review of our waste fees and charges as part of our long-term financial planning, the proposed increases to charges in rates for properties with access to waste services from 25-26 include the following. So we have the waste management facility charge, which is proposed to increase from $84 to $168 in 25-26. So that equates to a 100% rise. And you can see that on the screen before you, just under, it's the last one down under Glen Innes 7. So this is equivalent to $3.23 per week. And then you'll see that annual CPI increases will apply from 26-27. We are also proposing to increase the bin collection charges by 100% over 3 years, which you can see on the screen before you. It's essentially the bin collection charges are proposed to increase, as you can see, 35% and followed by 32.5% and 32.5% in the following years. And then the charges will return to the CPI rates after that. You can also see that we've shown on the screen Tenterfield and Uralla Shire Council charges, noting Uralla's councils are just the 24-25 fees. So we've put them on there to include a comparison to essentially provide some context to show that even with the proposed increases, our fees will remain largely in line with or below in some cases, particularly the waste management facility charge, with what others in the region are also already charging. So the additional fees are proposed to go towards maintaining and operating our landfills, which include our main Glen Innes facility, our 3 rural landfills at Red Range, Deepwater and Emmaville, as well as our regular bin collections across several towns. The fees are also proposed to go to over $5 million in capital projects over the next 10 years. Those include the construction of waste transfer stations at Glen Innes and all our rural landfills, a proposal to increase our waste pickup services to other parts of the LGA in coming years, our planning and implementation and rollout of our FOGO, Food Organics, Green Waste Organics program, which is required by the EPA by 2030. It's also there to allocate for remediation for portions of our landfills, which will occur over the 10-year period, and also explore new technologies to assist with keeping waste charges as low as possible in years to come. And just quickly, finally, I'd like to emphasise that these fees and charges are currently on exhibition. So they're contained in our operational plan, and we'd love to hear from the community. And you are all welcome to complete submissions in response to the proposed charges here. And that's me. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Rihanna. So looking at maintaining our financial sustainability, our Director of Corporate and Community Services, Lindsay Woodland, will speak to these next set of slides. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you, Fiona, and thanks everyone for your attendance tonight. In this part of the presentation, I'll be covering the importance of financial sustainability for councils, the financial challenges facing this council and why we are currently not financially sustainable. Also, what we have done and what we plan to do to improve our financial sustainability moving forward. I'll also cover the proposed special rate variation this evening and the options being considered, and I hope to provide clarification for everyone here tonight on the SRV and why it is actually required. Just move to the next slide. Next slide is about our long-term financial plan. The long-term financial plan, it's a critical document for all councils, and it's linked closely with the Community Strategic Plan, Delivery Program and Operating Plan that Bernard mentioned previously and went through in quite some detail. Fundamentally, it ensures that councils remain financially sustainable. It helps to answer key questions such as how financially resilient we are our community assets fit for purpose, can we afford what the community is asking for, what are the opportunities to generate new revenue and economic growth and economic development, and the visitor economy is a very important plank to our strategy moving forward. What funding is required to implement the community's priorities and council's delivery program. A financially sustainable council is one that has the ability to fund ongoing service delivery and renew and replace its assets as required. There are 4 key principles for financial sustainability for councils. Firstly, council must achieve a fully funded operating position every year. That's a fundamental plank. Secondly, council must maintain sufficient cash reserves. Thirdly, council must have a fully funded capital program. And finally, council must also have the ability to maintain its asset base by renewing identified ageing infrastructure and ensuring that there are cash reserves that are set aside for those works yet to be identified. In fact, the Local Government Act requires all New South Wales councils to ensure sound financial management and to be financially sustainable. Councils really have no choice in this. They're obligated to meet this requirement of the New South Wales Government. Councils must also consider the financial effects on future generations when funding the cost of services and infrastructure. So it's about our children and their children and future generations to come, not just about this generation. And councils operate in a highly regulated environment, so we are bound by certain rules, regulations, policies and procedures to ensure that we maintain financial sustainability moving forward. And these factors combine to ensure that we are financially sustainable for future generations. Through a recent review of council's finances back last year, it became clear that Glen Innes 7 Council is not financially sustainable. At that time, we had general fund deficits forecast moving forward of 6.1 million per year, which after action taken by council is now down to around 4.7 million over the next 10 years for each year. Glen Innes 7 Council is not alone in this regard. A recent review of the financial state of New South Wales councils identified that 47 councils are reporting operating deficits. That's 40% of New South Wales councils experiencing financial stress. And many of these councils are actually regional and rural councils, just like us. They include Tamworth, they include Gunnedah, they include other councils and neighbouring councils of us. 16 New South Wales councils have severe cash problems, including Glen Innes 7 Council, which I'll go into detail a little bit further on. Some 32 councils over the past 3 years have applied for special rate variations. That's incredible, including some of our neighbouring councils. Armidale applied for and received 58.8% increase a couple of years ago. Tenterfield applied for 104% increase, but received 43% increase a couple of years ago. Kyogle, Tamworth, Gunnedah and more. So IPART have approved 9 special rate variations last year alone, another 6 this year. And the year before there were 17 SRVs, special rate variations, approved by IPART. So why is Glen Innes 7 Council not financially sustainable? Well, it is a combination of factors rather than a single factor that we can point to. We've seen some significant increases in cost of materials and services over the past few years, including our insurance costs, which have gone up something like 15% this year alone, against a rate peg of 4.4%. And that's a big cost for council. Insurance is over $1 million a year for council. Technology costs have gone up. Cybersecurity has gone up something like 200,000, north of 200,000 over the last year. General materials and contractor costs have gone up. Auditing costs have almost trebled in the last couple of years and more. We've also, we undertook a couple of years ago an asset revaluation, which meant that our depreciation increased by something like 1.5 million. These costs are generally outstripping the modest rate pegs that council has received over the past 5 years. And in fact, back in 2020, 21-22, the rate peg was something like 2% per annum against inflation of 6%. And so we're just going backward in real terms each and every year. In Glen Innes 7 Council, or Glen Innes LGA, I should say, we have very limited growth in our population. And as costs increase, there is a limited number of ratepayers to spread these costs across. As I'll show you shortly, the level of grant funding has now reduced, so we need to reduce our reliance on these funds and rely more on our own sources of revenue moving forward. Cost shifting has occurred frequently from both state and federal levels of government. Example, Department of Communities and Justice, DCJ, recently pulled legal services from regional centres, just sent us an email, pulled those services. So they were previously used to manage dispute processes in regional areas, and now it's up to council to provide those services, and there's no funding provided to offer those services. If you just go to the next slide, we can see this is a very interesting slide, and it really does illuminate some of the issues that we've had. Over the past financial 5 years, we've had deficits back in 2021, and then you can see that the top lines, the blue and the red, where the revenue line, the red line, is starting to separate from the blue line, which is our expenses line. Expenses have actually been quite well managed, even in the face of these significant cost increases. Council has been able to manage its expenses relatively well over that period. But you can see as the red line goes up, that's where we've received these operating grants, which were on a temporary basis, something like 5.8 million or 5 million a year for those 2 years were received. And then, of course, they've dropped off again back in 24 and again 25. And so those operating grants that are not normally received were really disguising the underlying financial position of council. They were reflecting modest operating surpluses for those couple of years, very low surpluses, and disguising or masking the deficits that we would have had if we hadn't have received those grants. So it gives you an indication of the importance of not having to rely on those operating grants and to be able to rely on our own sources of revenue moving forward. If I can just move forward. And you can see, again, you can see the blue line there is the operating grants that I mentioned, but more significantly is the capital grants. We used to receive back in 2020 and the years before that, somewhere around 2.5 to 3 million a year in capital grants. And that has gone up significantly since that time. In fact, they've now peaked at 20 million back in 2024 and dropped off again in 2025. Those grants are terrific. You know, they're fabulous. They help fund new assets that council would not normally or ordinarily be able to afford, such as the fabulous indoor sports centre, which is a $7 million fully funded grant, the airport runway upgrade, which is a $3 million fully grant funded project. So those projects would not have ordinarily been able to be funded by council. We just can't afford them. But they do come with a warning sticker. And when assets are created or renewed, that's when your depreciation increases. That is that the assets need to be maintained moving forward, and you've got to allow for that with your depreciation, which of course is a hit to the bottom line, and that creates bigger deficits moving forward. They also cost more to operate. We need to run, for example, the indoor sports centre for a cost of around $200,000+ per annum to cover your operating costs, your insurance costs, and also the maintenance costs. And many of the grants we secure require us to perform the work, and I think Madam Mayor alluded to this. We have to do the work, perform the work, pay for the work, and complete the work before we actually receive the funding. Once upon a time, many of the grants you received the funding up front. These days, many of the grants we receive, you have to do the work and you get the funding later. In some cases, it's been up to 2 years before we've received the funds. And this has caused some significant cash flow issues with council over the last couple of years. So We're not sitting on our hands. We are addressing these challenges. There are a number of financial challenges you've just heard, and we're addressing those challenges to the best extent that we can. At the second quarterly business review that we undertook in February, we reduced costs by some 600,000, a little bit more than 600,000. And again, in the third quarterly business review, which we presented to Council last week, we found another 400,000. So that's $1 million in cost reductions, expense reductions that we've found so far. And we're continuing to work on becoming more efficient and finding more funds as we move forward. Moving forward, we've identified a further $100,000 per annum for each of the next 5 financial years. That's 500,000 over 5 years in efficiency gains, including implementing new technology, reducing discretionary spend, things like upskilling our staff so that we don't have to rely so much on contractors who are generally more expensive than staff. Reducing our procurement costs, reviewing our underutilised property and land to minimise maintenance costs, and looking for ways to reduce our depreciation further. And we hope to bring you more good news in the next few weeks on that front. However, with all of this effort, it's still not enough to achieve long-term sustainability for this council. And therefore, very regrettably, we have to come to the community and discuss a special rate variation to help us to achieve financial sustainability moving forward, and to be able to continue to deliver the services at a level that you expect, and maintain and renew our assets to the level that our community would expect. We've also got the next slide. Thanks, Fiona. 3 videos. They're very informative. They're from our financial expert, Morrison Lowe, who talked to help you explain or help you understand. They explain the rates, how rates work. They explain our current financial position, and they explain also the special rate variation scenarios in some detail. So very informative. I do encourage you all to go to those videos and have a look at that for even further information. In terms of the special rate variation, as Madam Mayor has alluded, no one wants a rate increase. Our councillors certainly don't want a rate increase. Our community doesn't want a rate increase, and council officers and council staff don't want a rate increase. However, as I mentioned previously, we are obligated to be financially sustainable, and we really have no choice but to pursue a special rate variation. There are 4 scenarios that we've considered, which I'll go through and help you to clarify each of these. We just move to the next slide. Thanks, Fiona. Next slide. Thanks. Yep, that's it. The scenario 1 is what we call managed decline. It's really a do-nothing scenario. It's relying on the rate peg of 3. We're assuming 3%. That's on average every year moving forward. And the rate peg, as you can see, that line at the bottom, which is the reddy brown line, is deficits moving forward for the next 10 years. And that is not going to meet our sustainability objective. And so it's really not an option for us to consider. We put it there as the baseline scenario, and that's what it is there really for. The next slide is what we call the sustainability scenario. It's a 2-year scenario where we implement a special rate variation, which includes a rate rise in 26-27, that financial year, of 28.5%, and the following year another 21%. And then from that year on, the rate peg will apply again. So that means for the average residential ratepayer, it means a $292.18 increase in 26-27 and $276.64 increase in 27-28. Scenario 3 is your growth and prosperity scenario over 2 years. This one, we've got another one over 3 years, and it allows council to be financially sustainable by 28-29 and have a modest general fund surplus from that point. Cumulative permanent SRV of 61.75% over the 2 years, which includes your rate peg as well. The normal rate peg is included in that number. And we break it into 31.5% in year one, which is 26-27, and 23% in 27-28. And then from there on, the rate peg applies again. That means an increase to the average ratepayer, residential ratepayer, of $322.93 in 26-27 and $310.07 in 27-28. It also provides some limited opportunity to deliver some of our elements of the Growth and Prosperity Program, which I'll talk about shortly. Scenario 4, is the Growth and Prosperity over 3 years. And so while the cumulative effect, and it's largely because of the rate peg being included also in 28 and 29, the cumulative effect is higher than the 2-year scenario at 68.5%. The increases each year are lower than the 2-year scenario. So in year one, which is 26-27, it's a 26.5% increase. Year 2 is a 20% increase, and year 3, 11% increase, which means a average residential rate rise of 27.67 in year 1, 25.37 in year 2, and $171.18 in $171.18 in year 3. So I'll just talk a little bit about this Growth and Prosperity Program and the initiatives that we have that are on top of what we went through with the sustainability scenario. And
Lindsay, just before you start on the Growth and Prosperity Program, I just mentioned to those that are putting questions, thanks for putting questions in the chat. We will get to those, and particularly to you, John, with your 3 questions so far. That we're not ignoring them. We're just saving the questions up to the end of the slide pack, and there's just a few more to go. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, so the strategies that we're looking at are health services facilitation of 100,000 per annum. The health services, well, we want to attract more health professionals and medical facilities to our LGA, and council needs to facilitate this to happen, because it is not happening fast enough without our intervention. The economic development strategy, which is 250,000 per annum. Economic development is just critical for this region, and it's critical for identifying and securing industry and pursuing business opportunities and growing our all-important visitor economy. The Our Towns Improvement Program, it's 150,000 per annum. Is all about improving the livability for our local villages and towns, and improving our villages such as Deepwater, Emmaville, Glencoe, Red Range, etc. And we're up at Deepwater yesterday evening at the town hall, and the community there are really wanting improvements to their local community, and that's very understandable, and that's what this Our Towns program sets out to achieve. Housing facilitation. Again, without council's involvement and planning initiatives to create more housing stock, this just won't happen fast enough. So we need to invest in this critical area, and it's about providing the platform to free up more housing stock. And our iconic town hall in Glen Innes requires a major renovation, and the planning for that needs to begin shortly. So you can see here that the 3 options that we've mentioned with the special rate variation all achieve financial sustainability by 28-29 financial year and moving forward from there. That's our objective, to be financially sustainable by 2028-29. Some people have asked us why we haven't modelled other scenarios, such as 30% scenario, and our answer is that option 2, the sustainability scenario, is really the best scenario to meet this objective of being financially sustainable 28-29, and so that's the minimum requirement. However, at the end of the consultation process, and once we've listened to all the feedback from the community, and we've received an enormous amount of feedback from the community, which is gratefully received, and once we also consider new information that comes to hand over the next few weeks, and as I mentioned, we're pursuing other business improvement opportunities, we will look at, we'll consider all these options again and adjust accordingly and minimise the impact as much as we can on the community. This is a genuine engagement process, and we do encourage you all to go online and have your say about the important issues. I'll also mention we had to clarify this. We got a question on what does that mean after the SRV, and just to explain, and if I use the example of the Growth and Prosperity 3-year option, the average baseline, average residential baseline in 25-26 is $1,025. Once the SRV, if it is approved, applies, then that will increase by $271 in the first year, going up to $1,296. The second year, it'll increase again by 20%, which is $259. It'll go to $1,556. The third year and the final year of the SRV, it will go to $1,727, and that's an increase of $171. At that point, that becomes the new baseline, and from there on, moving forward, that is the baseline to which the rate peg of 3% on average per annum will be applied from that point forward. And so that's how it will work. And but there's still a lot of work to do in terms of the scenarios and which option council actually approves as we move forward. One more slide is, again, we just needed to clarify with the community that it doesn't apply to everything on the rate bill, on your rates notice. It applies to the residential rates, and that's the main area there. Everything else is, except for the domestic waste, of course, waste facility management fee will be clear. So your water charges and so on will remain as they are.
I think you've addressed this one, Lindsay.
No, this is for Bernard, I think.
Yep. Yes, so where to from here? This is one of the last parts of the extensive consultation session. This is the third of the virtual sessions. We've had 3 public meetings. We've got a phone survey, there is a written survey, there is an online survey, and we've also had a ratepayer letter and a general newsletter as well. So in terms of the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, IPART, which is the body council will ultimately apply to, they have some quite serious requirements around public engagement, public consultation. We've ensured we've not only met them, but in fact, we have exceeded them. Thanks, Fiona. So the timeline, as I said, this process started way back last year. The exhibition period finishes soon. I think it's June the 6th. Council will then consider all the feedback, all the community consultation, every piece of information, and would be looking to make a decision at its June meeting. The council then needs to advise IPART by November of its intent to apply, and that application goes in early next year. Now, following that, IPART in fact goes and undertakes some more community consultation and engagement as well. And then we would expect a decision from them in May, approximately 12 months next year. And then, of course, it is applied for the 26-27 year. So it will be probably, in many respects, an 18-month process. But it is something, well, firstly, we want to do very carefully and thoroughly, and just as significantly, IPART, which is ultimately the approval authority, has some very strict requirements around the process. And of course, they will be scrutinising whatever application the council will make.
Well, thank you very much to all the panel members, and we'll go to taking some questions. And first up, we've got a question from John. He has a few questions, but he starts with a question about the bus to Brisbane. Has there been any progress on looking to have a smaller bus that can connect to Stanthorpe? And I'm wondering, Bernard, as the General Manager, are you able to provide some information for John?
Yes, I may not get all the names right, but Transport for New South Wales is undertaking a number of strategies at the moment, and one is the equivalent of a regional integrated transport plan. And in fact, there are documents out in the public at the moment. And one of the focuses is around that interconnectivity, not only from here to Stanthorpe and Brisbane, but down to Grafton, across to Inverell and south as well. So Council has been advocating, and then it goes back to my earlier point about the role of Council. We have been advocating for those improved transport links. So in terms of actual progress, not a lot, and it is a very long or lengthy process in terms of time from Transport for New South Wales as well, and it'll continue on over the balance of this year. But there were some indications that it may be improved, and Council is advocating for that.
Thanks very much, Bernard. We have a second question from Jim. He's asking if, or stating that Councillor Arundel feels very positive progress can be made with a 30% increase. Why is that being downplayed by the Council when it is a favoured option by most in the community? I'll put that question to you, Bernard.
Yes, well, look, we've obviously had a range of suggestions around alternatives, and we expect we will get more as part of the consultation. But I think, as Lindsay indicated before, from our modelling, the sustainability scenario is the minimum. We have a requirement to be financially sustainable, and to achieve that, the sustainability scenario is the one we need to, and anything less than that does not, it means we do not meet that objective.
I might just add to that. I think also there is some work going on in the background around depreciation. And whilst in the current modelling that we've done, the lowest sustainability number is 55.49%. If there is opportunity to bring that down in the coming weeks, Council will certainly look to do that. But as a baseline, we need to get to financial sustainability. How we get there in regard to what year we want to get there in. So currently all the scenarios are modelled to get there in 28-29. So Council may consider that we get there a year later and we spread the SRV over a longer period of time. All of that is coming back to Council in the June workshop, and I would expect all councillors to participate in that session, and then the final decision made in June.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
For the scenario to be a little bit different, but for now, this is what we've modelled.
Thank you very much. Jim's third question is about the hub. Is it financially sustainable? Is it able to financially sustain itself? I'll put that to the General Manager.
I think I'll pass to Rihanna.
Yeah, I can take that one.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Thanks for your question, John. Look, as reported to Council in March of this year, at present, the hub is not financially sustainable in its current form. While it continues to operate in line with our grant funding requirements and definitely provides value to our community and visitors, its operational costs are currently exceeding the income. So look, this is due to a combination of reduced staffing, limited marketing, maintenance challenges, and the need for some more strategic planning. So as a result of that report, Council actually resolved in March to take immediate steps to turn this around, which our staff are currently working on. So the resolution included the creation of a temporary marketing plan to boost awareness and usage, staff talking to local businesses, unis, funding bodies to explore new revenue streams, a review of the staffing needs to bolster the centre there, and also to carry out a financial and maintenance review to find some cost savings and fix some ongoing issues. So the resolutions required council officers to report back in September of this year on how these changes are tracking. So yeah, we're very much aware of we need to turn that around and yeah, get it reversed as to financial sustainability.
Thanks, Rihanna. We have a question from David Lacey. Will the community see the results from the Have Your Say survey? I'll put that question to Lindsay.
Yes, we're happy to publish the results, I think, of that survey at the end of the process. It may not be every questionnaire, of course. We have to respect privacy and so on, but the overall results, I think we'd be happy to publish.
Thank you very much. And at this stage, we don't have any further questions unless anyone else in the chat is wanting to put forward a question. Just double check. I have another question from John. Would Council be prepared to have Councillor Arundel fully present his proposal in a public forum? Bernard?
Look, at this point in time, the Council, as the body, has made a decision about the scenarios, and those scenarios are out on public exhibition. Individuals may have varying points of view, but it is the decision, or whatever the decision of the Council is, that is what is put forward.
Thanks very much, Bernard. And thank you very much to John. John's still got his hand up. Have you got another question, John? No? No, John has said no. And thank you, John. Just double checking the chat line just to see if there's any other questions that are coming up. People a moment to type something in. And I think that it takes us to the end of our virtual meeting. Unless there's any final comments that any members of the panel have to say, I think we can wrap our meeting up. No final comments. I'd like to thank those people from the community who've made the effort to join our meeting tonight. Thank you very much. Use the Have Your Say. It's open until the 6th of June, and that we are receiving survey responses on a daily basis, and they will all be the summary of those responses will be provided in a report to Council that goes to Council on the 19th of June. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.